Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We're just a couple days away from Christmas, so we thought we'd bring a little extra holiday spirit here to the Gridiron Expert as we continue our 2018 college football bowl predictions. And these next slate of games will carry us through all day Friday, all day Saturday before bowl games take a break themselves until December 26th after Christmas. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right on in for the two games that we have on Friday, the Bahamas Bowl and the Idaho Potato Bowl. We'll start off here with the Bahamas Bowl between Florida International and Toledo. And the first thing we got to address is what Butch Davis has done with this Florida International team. He comes in, it's just his second year with the squad. He's won 8 games in each of his 2 years with this team and has a chance to win 9 games if they can get the win over the Toledo Rockets. If you go back and look at our Conference USA breakdown back in the summer, I was a little cautious when I was picking these Florida International games because I didn't know how they were going to. They didn't have a lot of starters coming back this year. I didn't know how they were going to react on offense after losing their star quarterback and Alex Mago. I didn't know how things were going to transition for them on the offensive side of the ball. But James Morgan, a transfer from Bowling Green, has come in and done great things for this offense. 26 touchdown passes, led the Panthers to a tie for second in the Conference USA Eastern Division, and had their offense scoring 34.6 points per game on average. So the production on that side of the ball did not take a step down like I expected it to, and I don't know why I thought it would. Butch Davis, knowing his past, knowing his history as a head coach, usually does a phenomenal job with squads like these. And he has once again done it with Florida International and proven me wrong. Over here on Toledo, they have not won a bowl game since 2015. And last year we thought that would be a year where they could end that streak because they had, I think, an 11-win team, won the MAC, but just got annihilated by Appalachian State in their bowl game, especially when they had some talent at the quarterback position. Logan Woodside was there, and I expected a little bit more out of him. He wasn't able to get the job done. Of course, this year he's gone, not playing for the Rockets this season. My biggest question, though, is their offense is usually playing fairly well. They've got a star wide receiver, Deontay Johnson, who has 663 yards on the year and 7 touchdowns. Can he provide the offensive spark? I don't really think the offense is going to be the issue for Toledo in this game. I think it's going to be more of their defense. They're allowing an average of 430 yards per game and allowing an average of 257.8 passing yards per game. They're also allowing, on top of all of that, 30.2 points per game allowed. So I'm a little concerned with Toledo defense. Can they step up and shut down a very potent Florida International offense? I don't think they will. I do think this game will be close, though, but I think Butch Davis and the Panthers get a huge win to clinch their 9th win of the season. Moving on, our second game of Friday, the last game of Friday, the Idaho Potato Bowl between Western Michigan and BYU. And both of these teams have been very sporadic over the course of this entire season. We'll start with the Broncos of Western Michigan. Which team is going to show up? They finished 7-5, a very solid year for them and their new head coach, or fairly new head coach, in Tim Lester. But they lost by 27 points to Toledo, lost by 45 points to Ohio, yet beat the MAC champions Northern Illinois in the season finale 28-21. They also gave a very solid fight against Syracuse in the season opener, and of course we didn't know what Syracuse was capable of back then in August, but still, they gave them a very solid fight, put up, I think, 40 points on the Orange there. So which Western Michigan team is going to show up? Is their running game going to be able to keep up the production they've had going on this entire season? Levante Bellamy has 1,172 yards on the year and 6 touchdowns. They also have another very solid running back, and Jamari Bogan, who has 15 rushing touchdowns on the year. So can that run game keep up the production against a fairly solid BYU defense? Overall, though, I would say both these teams are very balanced on the offensive side of the ball. Western Michigan averaging a little over 242 yards through the air, while they're averaging a little over 200 yards on the ground. Same for BYU, 199 yards through the air and 155 yards on the ground on average. So both these offenses are very, very balanced overall. On the other side with BYU, they've also been very sporadic, starting off the year 3-1 with a huge win over Arizona in the season opener, and then somehow going on the road and upsetting Wisconsin back when they were in the top 10. After that, they lost 4 of their next 5 games and then ended up blowing a 20-point lead to Utah in the season finale. So BYU finishing just 6-6 this year. So which of these teams is going to show up? Which team is going to bring their A game? Right now, the spread is BYU by about 12 points, 12.5, and I personally think that's a little high. This game will probably be closer than some expect, but I think in the end, BYU will get a huge victory over Western Michigan from the MAC. Moving on to our Saturday games, we have 4 games over the course of Saturday. We'll start off in the Birmingham Bowl between Memphis and Wake Forest. And the key for this pick here is whether Darrell Henderson of Memphis will play or not. If he does not play, we will post on Twitter our prediction change, which will switch over to Wake Forest. If he does play, we are sticking with Memphis. That's how big of a difference and how big of a key player Darrell Henderson is to this Memphis Tigers team. He's had 1,909 yards on the ground this season and 25 total touchdowns. One of the better players, in my opinion, in the entire nation. He just didn't get the attention that he deserved. Memphis on offense is averaging 43.6 points per game, but allowing 31.5 points per game. Same with Wake Forest. This game has a very good chance of being a shootout because they're averaging 32.5 points per game on offense, but allowing 33.3 on defense. So neither of these teams has a very solid defense here, which is why this has a chance to be a very high-scoring game, much like Wake Forest's game last year was against Texas A&M at 55-52 shootout in the Belk Bowl. And I know I mentioned Darrell Henderson. If he doesn't play, that we would probably switch it over to Wake Forest. And some people would say, well, hold on. Memphis always has a very potent passing attack. And yes, they do have a solid quarterback in Brady White, who's thrown for over 3,000 yards and 25 touchdowns himself. But as I've said before, he's no Riley Ferguson. He's no Paxton Lynch. He's not the typical Memphis quarterback that we've seen in the past. He's still very talented. I know many teams would love to have a quarterback like him on their team, but I just don't know if he can get the job done, especially when Wake Forest knows all they've got to do is hone in on that passing game. For the Demon Deacons, they're going for their third straight bowl win, which would be huge for them. And Dave Clawson and his squad, I mean, they beat Texas A&M last year, beat Temple the year before. Both games I don't think many people thought they would win. This is another scenario where many people don't think they will beat Memphis, so maybe they can pull off another upset here. I'm very intrigued to see how their offense does because last year they had a very solid quarterback in John Walford, part of the reason for their offensive success last year. This year he's gone. They have Sam Hartman there, who's thrown for almost 2,000 yards this season, but the key player for them is Greg Dortch, just a sophomore wide receiver who has 1,078 yards through the air and 8 touchdowns. So Memphis has got to be able to shut him down. He's got to be able to step on the defensive side of the ball. I think they get the stops when it counts. Darrell Henderson has a great game. His final game as a Tiger, and Memphis gets the win here. But once again, if he does not play, I will switch this pick over to Wake Forest. You're going to want to check Twitter for those prediction changes and spread picks for all of these games. Moving on to the Armed Forces Bowl between Houston and Army. This is a game that I'm actually very, very excited for. One that I think is a little under the radar. Not a lot of people are giving attention to. The big storyline here, though, is that Army can win 11 games in a season for the first time in their history. And that's going to be very, very huge for Jeff Monken and what he has done with this Army program. Biggest thing for Army is their time of possession. They are holding the ball for most of these games for about 39 minutes. Out of the 60 minutes of football, they're holding it for about 2/3 of the game, which is extremely impressive and really not a shock with the type of offense they run. That spread option, the offense, option, triple option, everything they've got going over there. The big players there back in the offseason, I addressed my concerns of losing Ahmad Bradshaw, the star quarterback for Army, but Kelvin Hopkins has come in and really just taken over, and like they didn't even miss Ahmad Bradshaw. He's done everything exactly right. 847 rushing yards, 18 total touchdowns through the year, and almost thrown for 1,000 yards. So they actually are throwing the ball a little bit more for the Black Knights this season. I've just been very impressed with the transitions for Army this year. After the amount of people they lost last year, to continue this pace, to continue this style of football, and not skip a beat. And some people are even calling this maybe the best Army team either in history or in, honestly, recent memory. You got to remember, these guys took Oklahoma, one of the best offenses in the entire nation, held them to 28 points, and took them to overtime at Oklahoma. So this is a very, very dangerous and very, very impressive Army team. Going up against a solid Houston team, though, but the reason that I'm leaning towards Army and the reason I'm almost leaning to this being a no-brainer for Army clinching their 11th win of the season is Houston will be without their star quarterback in De'Aaron King, who went down earlier in the year with a knee injury, and then, of course, will be out without their star defensive player, Ed Oliver, who will be a first-round draft pick. He's holding out for the NFL draft, a decision that I do not agree with many of the college football players out there holding out and skipping their bowl games, not being there for their team, but Ed Oliver and many others across the nation are doing that. So Houston going to be without 2 of their huge playmakers. They're going to have to rely on their quarterback, Clayton Tune, who's been very sporadic and somewhat inconsistent during his playing time this year. I think Army, with the amount of defense they have, holding opponents to 18 points per game on average, I think this is going to be not a runaway game for them, but should win fairly comfortably and give Jeff Monken and Army their first 11-win season in history. So it's going to be a very exciting thing to watch in the Armed Forces Bowl on Saturday afternoon. The Dollar General Bowl between Buffalo and Troy. Once again, if you like offense, this might be the game for you. And we'll start over here with Buffalo, a team that should have won the MAC. I'll go flat out and say it. They blew a 19-point lead to Northern Illinois in that game, a game they should not have lost, left a lot of points on the table, missed an extra point, missed a 2-point conversion, ended up losing that game 30-29. So special teams and 2-point conversions end up playing a huge role down the stretch. But Buffalo, a very talented offensive team. You have Tyree Jackson at quarterback, one of the better quarterbacks in the entire MAC this past season, and Anthony Johnson, a senior, with 944 yards receiving and 11 touchdowns. So those two players combined have a solid 1-2 punch that's going to make it difficult for any defense to stop. Buffalo is averaging 34.8 points per game and just allowing 24.7. And MAC defenses are generally not known for being solid, not being good defense, allowing tons of points. You've watched those weekday games, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, MAC games, and sometimes those things can get extremely high scoring. But Buffalo is breaking that trend. They're going up against a Troy team, though, that, as we know, went on the road against Nebraska and stole a win. Yes, Nebraska wasn't necessarily a powerhouse this year, but it is a very difficult place to play. We know the year before they went on the road and defeated LSU in one of the more shocking upsets of the season. I truly believe that Neil Brown will be out of Troy by the end of this season, if not this season, next season. With the success he's had with the Trojans, he is going to have to take a step up to a bigger school. I believe that he will be gone, if not this year, the next, with the amount of success he's had with Troy and the ability to go on the road and win big games out of conference. The biggest thing for this Troy team, though, is how well will their quarterback play be? Sawyer Smith, in my opinion, has done extremely well at the quarterback position. We know Brandon Silvers was the Trojan star last year. Of course, he departed after being a senior. Sawyer Smith wasn't even the starting quarterback at the beginning of this year, but had to take the place of Caleb Barker, who went down with an injury. And I've been impressed with the way he's come in and filled this gap. But more importantly, the run game for Troy is going to be the key in this Dollar General Bowl. B.J. Smith, 1,093 yards, 12 touchdowns. Can Buffalo's defense shut him down and force Sawyer Smith to win this game through the air? I think they can do that, and I think Buffalo, hungry and out to prove something after blowing that lead in their championship game, their MAC championship game, comes out and gets a close win over Troy, sending Troy home with a 9-4 record and Buffalo home with an 11-win season. And then the final game of Saturday night, Hawaii versus Louisiana Tech. Most times you don't get to watch this Hawaii because it's so late, but this time you will. This is a game you're going to want to watch because Hawaii has secretly produced one of the better quarterbacks in the entire nation, statistically, with Cole McDonald. And Nick Rolovich, knowing him as an offensive mind, I'm not surprised by this. But like I said, not many of us have been able to watch Hawaii because they're starting so late out there, way out on the West Coast. But Cole McDonald has thrown for 3,790 yards on the year, 35 touchdown passes, which is good for number 7 in the nation. Among all quarterbacks, he's number 7 in the nation when it comes to passing touchdowns. It's extremely impressive. Nick Rolovich has come in here in just his 3rd year and transformed this Hawaii offense to the point where they're very no-huddle, they're up-tempo, more air raid, 32.1 points per game they are scoring, but they are allowing 35.4. So that is good news for Louisiana Tech, who does have a fairly decent offense led by Jamar Smith at quarterback. So can Hawaii's defense step up, make the play, make plays that they need, and shut down this Louisiana Tech offense? And I've always quoted home field advantage, how big of a deal that is to me. But that has not been the case for Hawaii in the Hawaii Bowl. That has not always benefited them, but I think this year it will. I think the Rainbow Warriors get a huge win over Louisiana Tech. Biggest thing for Louisiana Tech and the Bulldogs, though, is Jalen Ferguson on the defensive end. The only way I think Hawaii loses this game, the only way I think Louisiana Tech wins this game is if Jalen Ferguson can show up and have a big game. He is tied for first with 15 sacks on the year, and he is just 2 sacks away from breaking the FBS career record for sacks in a career set by Terrell Suggs at Arizona State with 44. So if he gets 2 more sacks, he'll have 44.5 sacks over his entire college football career and will be the leading at the top for career sacks in a career. So that's going to be huge for Jalen Ferguson. Something you're just going to want to keep your eye on late Saturday night. Anytime history like that can be made, you're going to want to keep your eye on that. But I think Nick Rolovich and Hawaii get a huge win and clinch a 9-win season. So it's a major steps forward for the Rainbow Warriors and obviously going in the right direction as they want to try to continue to be contenders in the Mountain West. So we've got 6 great bowl games coming up over these next couple days. You're not going to want to miss any of them. This will be our last video before Christmas. Obviously, this will be the last bowl games before Christmas. So make sure you enjoy all that. Everybody stay safe over the holidays. We want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. Spend time with your friends, your family, your loved ones, and of course, enjoy a little football along the way. So as always, please go check us out on Twitter for prediction changes and spread picks, and always here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.